everyone, and welcome to our Business of Data monthly leading female executive LinkedIn live discussion. Happy February. It is wonderful to see you all. Thank you for those who joined us in January as part of the Business of Data Festival. But this month we're back on LinkedIn and we are excited to have a brilliant discussion today. Now, if this is your first time, just a quick recap of what we're doing here today. Each month I meet with some brilliant female executives from the data and analytics space to chat about the biggest challenges and opportunities that we face today. Now, we are live, so please do send in your questions as and when you think of them, and of course your thoughts and comments too. And if you see me looking to the side, it's because I'm taking a look at our wonderful comment section. So welcome to Janet, Jim, Marcia there, joining from Brazil, first time with this group, excited to learn with you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. And joining us is a wonderful panel who I will bring up to the stage now. Welcome all. Now, on our panel, we've had a couple job shifts since we last spoke. So I'm actually, for the first time, going to ask you to introduce yourselves because I'm intrigued to see what you're all up to now. Mina, welcome to the group. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing very well. I'm very excited to start the new year together with this amazing team and discuss all the different topics.
Amazing. Amina, I mean, since we last spoke live, you've got a bit of a different job company, and I wonder if you could just give us a bit of a flavour for what you're up to.
Yeah, so I have actually just last week joined Solita, and we are a consultancy company, and we are known for very exciting projects that cover all the aspects of human life in a sense. So we try to make the world a bit better with our projects together with our customers and help people to live more sustainable life.
Amazing. Thank you, Mina. Beza, lovely to see you. Again, you have moved into a wonderful new organisation as well. And I wonder if you could give us a bit of an insight into what that means for you.
Sure. I know there's a lot of changes going back and forth. So in my current position, I'm the Chief Data and Analytics Officer for State of Texas Department of Children and Family Services. It's definitely a larger role for the second largest state in the U.S. So a lot more responsibility, but hopefully, we could bring some change.
Yeah, I love that. And then Nirali, I will give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, but still at Openreach, so not much change there, I assume.
No, not much change here yet at the moment. But so I'm Nirali. I work at Openreach, which does digital infrastructure for the UK. It's year one done. I'm into year two now, or 2 months into year two. So there's too many opportunities yet for me to go elsewhere right now, I think.
Amazing. Keeping you busy, keeping you on your toes. Amazing. So this month we are talking all about problem solving analytics, a big topic that we've touched on before slightly, but I wanted to dedicate an entire panel discussion to it because I think there's lots more to explore. So the first question that I've teed up for you all is, how do you balance the requirement to show short-term wins, so keeping those executives engaged with what you're up to and keeping the wider business engaged with what you're up to, with the larger projects that probably seek to make a bigger overall change? And I know if you focus on one or the other, you can see downsides to them. So how do you balance that? Nirali, I'll come back to you first for that one.
Great question, Catherine. So how do you balance it? I genuinely don't think there's an exact science to this. I do think you need to look at what the business problems are and the state of your business organisation is. So here at Openreach, we are in a state of transition. We're changing the infrastructure across the UK. So our biggest problems are around how do we do that at speed and great customer service, modernising our infrastructure, at the same time modernising the way we look at data and analytics across the business and solving those big questions. I just had my CEO last week go to me, actually, Nirali, these are your next 5 questions I'd like you to answer. And I'm looking at him going, great, those are several months worth of projects, or to deliver that. And in the meantime, I can't be seen to be doing no value. So one of the tips, one of the tips I have is ring fencing. So sometimes if you've got the capacity within your team, you can kind of ring fence like a small insight, quick, dirty solution, kind of tactical, or we call them rapid reaction teams that can answer the questions quickly. So we're still delivering value as we go along. And then you have some ring fence resources to do the bigger long-term projects. And then the other option I've done is I've just split the week up for some people as well, saying, well, actually, you can get a chance to do both options, small projects and big projects, but spend 3 days a week doing one and 2 days a week doing the other. Never felt like I've got the balance right, because it's always something we're missing or not done, but it's always work in progress. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that does help. And I love what you started off with there about the executives understanding how much they're asking. And I think that is a big portion of what we need to be doing, is ensuring that we communicate that and say, well, this is actually what you're asking. Is that the time you want dedicated to having the question answered? And it's really interesting, actually, that you dedicate those resources to when something comes in, they can be pulled off in that direction. Really interesting. Thank you, Nirali. Beza, how about yourself? Balancing that need between short-term wins and longer-term kind of transformation.
So I think for me, it's thinking about resources and prioritization, because you have multiple competing interests. And obviously with limited resources, what can you accomplish with the resource that you have? And I think that has to be aligned along with, what are you trying to achieve? What is the goal of the project? What are the deliverables of the project? What is the timeline of the project? And obviously resources are key to that, as far as what will you accomplish short term, medium, or long term, and mapping that out. So prioritization of what you need to tackle first. And I think, Catherine, you did mention, it's communication. So communicating with your stakeholders, executives, and others within your organizations, because usually projects require multiple teams in different divisions, especially if you're addressing a business problem. It's not something that just, impacts one division, but it can impact multiple divisions. So having that alignment, I think, is really, really key across whatever you're trying to solve.
Absolutely. And that alignment's fluid as well. Just because you've got it once doesn't mean you're going to have it always. And I think that's something that's a constant negotiation. Thank you, Beza. Nina, round us off on that from your experience, balancing the very difficult balancing act.
Yeah, I think that has been a challenge for quite a long time to try to, especially getting investments on those really fundamental long term, because everybody wants to see that fast value, and then when you deliver something fast, then you want to move to the next fast value. So I've tried, actually lately. I've been drafting a framework, so to make sure that wherever I advise my customers or work together with them, we make sure from the beginning, when we start planning what we are going to do, that there will be three you could say layers or levels taking into consideration. So there always needs to be that fast value, something that is going to deliver and kind of a proof of value, in a sense. I would like even to think that something that delivers fast, concrete value. But then you need to also take into consideration that at the same time, when you are building those fast value outcomes, you also put effort and invest in building those longer term fundamental capabilities and making them stronger and making them more sustainable and scalable. And sometimes you might even be missing the third level, which I call a backbone, so something that kind of keeps the whole structure together. So things like information architecture or business glossary or the business entities of data, or it can be also something like ML ops, like automating capability to automate the environment. So if you are missing those, you need to also invest building those gradually and kind of keeping these three layers or levels always on the radar when you are planning something. That helps to also steer or kind of manage the expectations of the top management, also to understand that it's not just the fast value and then you move forward, because then you end up having like very fragile environment and are not being able to build something long term.
Absolutely. I'm loving the actionable takeaways here for our audience today. So when we come to thinking about our teams and problem solving analytics, as we know from many of the in-person events that we're going to be going back to this year very excitingly, and of course the virtual events that we've been participating within over the last couple of years, we know that a large part of all these challenges are mindset, people focused. I know we speak about people, process and technology, and people tend to come first. So how have each of you been fostering a problem-solving mindset when it comes to analytics, and digging deep into that area. Beza, I'll come to you first.
So I think for my team is understanding how information and data is really key to operational functions, number one, but also for my team building the capacity internally to be able to address problems from basic to complex. And I think, number one is understanding, doing a good business or use case. So for that, building teams or individuals that have active listening skills to understand what are the friction within the business side that we need to address. Obviously, you're trying to address problems and issues. So you're looking at, what processes don't work. Is it a technology doesn't work? What are the barriers? And then, that is one aspect. The second aspect is actually building teams that have the technical expertise to address those problems. So it's addressing not only the problem, but also creating a potential solution. And then looping back with the different stakeholders that you're trying to work with to address that problem and trying to come up with a code-developed solution that's going to work. One thing that I've seen a lot is that you have technologies that are being built without really addressing the problem downstream or upstream. So it's really important that, there's a synergy between both of those aspects.
Thank you so much, Beza. Nirali, how about yourself when it comes to fostering that problem-solving mindset?
I think so leading on from what Beza said, in my experience, I've had two types of things. There's the problem-solving mindset of wanting to get an answer to this problem immediately, right? So in my head, it's like I've met with people and worked with people, that just goes, well, that's a problem. Let's get it solved, right? This is the solution. So they're already shaping that solution before they've even actually understood the problem fully. And so what I've been doing with that group of people is to try and convert them and train them into the other group of people that I've got, which is saying, well, actually, is that really the business problem? So what they're doing is asking like the 5 whys. So why is it a problem? What does it mean, etc. And they get into a level of detail and down each layer to fully understand what is the real issue in our business. So then we can then go into the conversation. So it's a bit of a business analysis kind of role of how we then bring that together to design an appropriate solution, right? And it could be a technical solution, it could be an AI solution, it could be actually just, let's just change the process a little bit here and that will solve it. So not everything has to be the latest technology, and not everyone has to understand a thing. But I think what I found is that if I employ a few people that can think a little bit like that, and if I can employ a few people or work with people across my business and my teams that don't always go, this is the answer, then that just helps us solve the right problem. I think it always just seems to exist. It comes back again next month or next year. But if we don't do that kind of deep dive. But the downside out of all of that for me is you need to have the time and the patience and have the ability to ask the right questions.
Yeah,
and not everyone's got patience.
And at the speed we've all been working at recently, that's an incredible ask, is to slow down and ask those questions. And it's really interesting because I sometimes think it comes down to a basic linguistic conversation of, are we meaning the same things? And when I was at university, we were doing a research project around a local area, and we were taking some data, and it was very transparent that in the findings there was kept being mentioned of gangs. Now, if we were to pass this data on, you'd be like, goodness me, this area has a real big problem. But what that was actually being interpreted as is group of people who sit around basically loitering. And we know that doesn't quite attribute to gang-like behavior, but it's the language they were using to communicate the challenge or the experience they were having. And that dictates a very different reaction. And I often think of that example, Nirali, when you're talking about kind of problems like that. It's a case of, well, that's in this research project, that's what you wanted the police to focus on. But actually, if you were looking at the police data, that would be a very, very different conversation to be having in the project resource room. Mina, yourself, when it comes to fostering that problem-solving mindset.
I love what Nirali said about the 5 whys, and I think that's exactly for me also. The core of the problem solving is first to really understand that what problem should you solve, what is the correct problem, what is the correct question to be answered. And I also like to use design sprint and design thinking methods, because I think they really help to steer that thinking and the discussion to the right direction. I think it's it's sometimes even the situation that it's like when the only tool is hammer, then everything looks like a nail, but that's not the case in reality. So I have, for example, used something that I call data solution design canvas that kind of brings the discussion together, and it starts from really understanding who has the problem, why is it problem for them, what do they now do when they encounter this situation, and what is it causing, and how big of a challenge it is, and then designing the best fit solution for that. And I think that tool actually worked very well in a couple of cases where the first thinking was that we need to integrate this data source to the common data lake, and then we had the discussion that, okay, so why do you need it, what is it that you need this data for, and do you not have access yet, and how do you want to use it? And then already at that point it was quite clear that the connecting the data source to the data lake was not the solution, but it was actually more, the problem was actually fully related on trusting the data and understanding the data rather than the technical solution. So I think it's really important to focus and put effort on really understanding and diving into the core root cause and understanding the problem before trying to solve it.
Okay, looks like we were experiencing some technical difficulties there, but I think we're back now. Oh, the joys of virtual events, but this is at least how you know it is live. Now, we've had a couple comments come in. Jim asking, does data literacy of execs play into your near and long-term delivery considerations? I know we had a bit of a touch on that, and I think nodding round the panel that absolutely crucial there. Now we've got a few moments left, and the last question I wanted to ask the group was getting to the root of the issue. What does that take in reality? Now, Nirali, I know
I guess Catherine is experiencing issues. Maybe Nirali, you want to
I'm going to take
it.
Getting root to the issue. I think, I don't know about you ladies, but I often find that so the 5 Why method I think works well, having the design thinking, but I work in a legacy organization, so design thinking isn't a natural culture for us, and asking why isn't a natural culture either, right? Bearing in mind, the organization's been around for over 100 odd years, so you're just sitting there going, not that anyone working here is that old, just to be really clear, but it's how do you make people also, right, especially those who've got a really long-term history in the organization, feel comfortable and unchallenged, in getting to that root cause of that problem. So, I think it's very much, it's not data really, it's that whole culture and approach. And I employ people like people with Lean Six Sigma skills. A couple of my guys have got this, just because they're the ones that can do not to streamline processes, but just so they can they're more tailored to asking those kind of more difficult questions. But I don't know how you guys, how do you get to that sort of root cause at all?
Nirali, I was just thinking of like a root cause analysis, something very simple, instead of going to the Six Sigma, just sort of sitting with the executives and, touching base on what are the primary issues and what are the secondary issues, and sort of, deconstructing those problems. And then going back to the data literacy, I think that's really, really important, or information literacy. The more that you're able to communicate with different executives and also teach and transfer that knowledge, I think it's absolutely important, because unless we're speaking the same language, then you get lost in translation. I mean this and they mean that. So having that, root definition where everybody agrees that this is what we're talking about. So I think some of those core literacy and understanding, even what the problem is, sometimes people see the problem very differently. So I think having that, agreement across, on the other aisle is really important to address any sort of issue. I don't know if Mina has anything, or Nirali, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree that it's very important to approach in a way that the organization feels comfortable, and it's not like taking the design thinking book and then go to the go to the boardroom and say, hey, this is how we are going to do it now. And I think it's but you can somehow kind of disguise it in a way that you start asking those questions, and you don't have to say that this is design thinking now and we are doing this 5 whys, but just having maybe just casual discussion and trying to dive into the what are they actually saying, and what do they actually mean when they talk about this topic, and why is this important for them. And I think it is just so important to take that time and not try to rush into building a solution for something that you are not quite familiar or confident that what is it actually that the problem is. And I think that's it requires a bit of a new ways of thinking, and maybe some sort of a new mindset from everybody. I also I've seen it in my teams that it's also for those data and analytical people sometimes challenging to kind of take that time and sit down and really ask those questions. They rather take the question and go on their own in some corner and trying to then have all these discussions without the actual person with the problem, and what do they mean by this, why are they saying this. And I think that's really not very productive.
I think just to add to what both of you said, I think so a year ago I found I still say I'm new in OpenReach, by the way, but I think because you're in new roles, you can ask directly, can you help me understand why that works that way, right? And then you start, I don't know but I start logging these concepts in my head and going, actually, at some point when I get to the later stage, I will go back to that problem and go, look, when I joined 6 months ago, you talked me through this problem. Can we talk about it a bit more, just so I can get the detailed understanding of how I understood it, right? And then that's how I think you find some of those sort of bigger problem opportunities to solve. But I think the theme that all of us have said, and Catherine, I hope you're back on live with us now, is communicating with and engaging with the business is the key thing, right? We can't. It's no longer a day and age where I'm in a little cubbyhole here and I go away and do my coding and come up with a solution. It's engaging with the business, working together. The whole sort of collaboration is really key to any problem to solve in our business, and it's not always just data that's going to find the answer either. I think is where my head's is what I've heard from everybody today.
And I like what Mina said as far as design. Always, I think of like human-centered design. Human is in the center of anything, either makes it or breaks it, almost like a monkey's wrench in a lot of ways. So without building the human element into anything, I think that's where a lot of the projects fail. Design thinking, I always interject human or, AI, I'm like augmented AI. There's a human element in any of these processes that it has to be part of the calculus of any sort of project, as well as, whatever you're designing or the intervention that you're, putting into place.
That's true.
I'm hoping
I should be praying to the internet gods that I am. Only this panel could carry on without the moderators. Thank you. Continuing the amazing discussion. We'll be ending here. As I mentioned, if you are watching us in person, we have a number around. Do be sure to check out the calendar to find the one nearest to you. And of course, do check the business for all of our latest content. We will be launching 2022 Advisory Board on Wednesday to see who will be for another year for amazing work there. Now, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all.